Join eccentric scientist Okabe Rintaro and his quirky friends at the Future Gadget Laboratory as they uncover the mysterious power of their phone microwave. Witness their thrilling journey as they tangle with time travel and the ominous organization CERN. On July 28, 2010, at Akihabara in Tokyo's electronics district, Okabe Rintaro takes his childhood friend Mayuri Shina to a press conference about a time machine at Radio Hall. Suddenly, Okabe is disturbed by what he thought was an earthquake, but finds a strange object on the roof. Mayuri says she needs a 100 yen coin for a vending machine change before Okabe, using his coin, wins a rare metal upa toy, which he gives to Mayuri. They part as the conference, led by Dr. Nakabachi, begins. Okabe finds Nakabachi's time machine theory alarming and compares it to John Titor's theory, angering him. Kurisu Makise, a renowned scientist, interrupts, and after a brief argument, Okabe receives a strange video message on his phone. Mayuri, upset over losing her toy, joins Okabe before a scream suddenly interrupts them, and Okabe finds Kurisu dead in a pool of blood. Ain't no way the best girl just died. Shocked, he tells Mayuri and hears ambulance sirens. Sending a message about Kurisu's death, Okabe finds himself alone in Akihabara and returns to find Mayuri and a crashed satellite. A hacker, Daru Hashida, joins them, and they name their lab members. Watching the news, Okabe is confused, remembering the cancelled conference. He takes a broken TV to be fixed and visits Mr. Brown with Mayuri. Later, he experiments with bananas and turns them into green jelly. At a seminar, he discovers his message about Kurisu's death was sent to the past and is shocked to see Kurisu alive. This looks like some real manhwa necromancy, not gonna lie. Okabe slowly stumbles towards Kurisu in shock and questions how it's possible. He touches her hair and admits she's truly green. He checks her cheeks next, but she shoves him away and asks if he wants her to call the cops. Get off her, you creep.
He's creepy!
Kurisu walks away and gives a lecture on the impossibility of time machines. Okabe objects, but she easily debunks his beliefs using her expertise in physics. Later, Okabe receives a message from Mayuri and goes to Yanabayashi Shrine, where he meets Luka Urushibara. To distract himself from his confusing day, he asks Luka to perform an exorcism. Okabe and Mayuri then encounter Mr. Brown and his new part-timer, Suzuha Amane. That night, Okabe researches online and discovers discussions about John Titor, a supposed time traveler warning about an organization called CERN, but he isn't able to find much more information about Titor. The next day, Okabe is confronted by a girl taking photos who turns out to be looking for an old computer, the IBM 5100. At Meikui Nyanyan, Okabe and Daru discuss this girl, Moeka Kiryu, and experiment with a phone wave after returning to the lab. They turn it on and put a banana inside, but it unexpectedly disappears when the microwave stops. Shocked, Okabe wonders if they made a teleportation device instead of a time machine before Kurisu arrives. Okabe asks Kurisu how she found this place, so she remarks that she asked Daru. She introduces herself, but Okabe refuses to shake hands, suspecting her motives, so she starts inspecting a gelled banana. At a TV shop, Suzuha flips channels while Kurisu examines the banana, finding it naturally attached but inedible. Daru finds Kurisu's reaction amusing and asks her to repeat a phrase, embarrassing her. Kurisu then says the microwave is probably linked to the gel banana, so Okabe reluctantly agrees to let her investigate on the condition she joins the lab. Mayuri arrives with groceries, excited about the new lab member, and Daru reports a lightning bolt from the microwave during a test. They decide to recreate the incident, and a bolt of electricity arcs from the microwave, ending in an explosion. Despite the smoke, no one is hurt, but they notice the desk has been damaged and realize Daru's message was sent to the past. Okabe declares the phone microwave a time machine, and the next day, Suzuha works on her bike while Okabe receives a message from Shining Finger wanting to meet. Daru discovers the microwave no longer creates gel bananas, and Kurisu left after Kentaro said it was a time machine. They discuss CERN and decide to hack into their system. By night, Daru successfully hacks CERN and finds some important emails, so he translates the email and they discover that they discuss the Z program, which revolved around many black holes and was announced a failure. Daru goes on and they shockingly find out that someone died as a result of the experiments. Like, who knew messing around with a fourth dimension could lead to serious consequences? Crazy, right? Exhausted, Daru calls it a day after failing to find more information, and Okabe recalls Suzuha's info on the IBN 5100 and John Titor and decides to contact John Titor. Later, Mayuri and Okabe do laundry and Suzuha greets them before work. Okabe teaches Mr. Brown and notices Mayuri's habit of reaching for the sun, a stardust shake hand. Kurisu is skeptical about the microwave being a time machine, suspecting electromagnetic wave disruption, but the gel banana confuses her. Realizing she needs laundry, she heads to the laundromat while Okabe receives messages from Shining Finger and John Titor and rushes to tell Daru, who is asleep, and Mayuri, who leaves for work. Replying to Shining Finger, Okabe meets Kurisu and asks her to rejoin the lab, but she is conflicted and bursts out, not wanting to repeat her father's mistakes. Okabe asks her to reconsider his request and asks about the IBN 5100, so she dismisses him and leaves. He eats at a donburi store and gets a message from Mayuri about Faris's info on the IBN 5100. He hurries to Meikui Nyanyan, finding Faris hosting a contest. To get info, he joins and loses, but gets the IBN 5100's location after he contacts Luca about the computer. Kurisu calls and they meet at Yanabanashi Shrine, where Luca's father shows them the IBN 5100. Later, while they're carrying the heavy computer back, Okabe and Kurisu start arguing with each other. As the day ends, Suzuha closes the shop and meets Okabe and Kurisu, who are carrying a large box. Suzuha excitedly asks what it is, so Kentaro slowly says it's an item of the utmost importance, but Kurisu asks him to just put it down, so they start arguing before Suzuha guesses it's the IBN 5100, surprising Okabe. She angrily glares at Kurisu, but Mr. Brown arrives, so she slowly walks into the shop as Kurisu confusingly wonders why she was looking at her like that. Okabe and Kurisu arrive at the lab where Mayuri is happy to see her and once again invites her to join the lab, making her reconsider. Interested in the IBN 5100, Daru tells them that it can connect to modern computers and sends Okabe, who passes the task to Kurisu, to buy parts, causing another argument. Mayuri gives Kurisu a tour, leaving Okabe to shop. At Akihabara, Okabe finds Suzuha, who helps him select parts and reveals she knows about IBNs through someone who has now passed away. She apologizes for her earlier behavior before a helicopter appears above them and she gets into a defensive stance, only to realize it's for a fireworks display. She exchanges emails with Okabe before heading to the event as Mayuri and Kurisu discuss the fireworks while yukata-clad women appear. Mayuri invites Kurisu, who hesitates to accept before Okabe returns and she heads back to the lab. Kurisu puts on Okabe's lab coat, enjoying their card game, and calls him Okabe, which irritates him. Later, Daru links the IBN 5100 to his computer, revealing CERN's dystopian plans involving black hole experiments and human testing. Shocked by the human experiments, Kurisu asks to stay involved despite the danger, and they discover reports of failed experiments resulting in people dying and jelly-like bodies from the past. Okabe, determined to surpass CERN, decides to use the phone microwave for their project. It's been 5 days since the satellite crash in Akihabara, making the area a tourist attraction. Moeka Kiryu is in the crowd, focused on her phone, after receiving a text from FB. She quickly replies and runs away when a reporter tries to interview her. Meanwhile, Suzuha joins Okabe and Daru for lunch as Daru complains about Okabe making him pay last time, but Okabe dismisses him, talking on the phone, which annoys the staff. Mayuri arrives, preventing further trouble, and they all head to the CRT shop where they meet Kurisu. Suzuha glares at her before Mr. Brown calls her to work, and the rest of the group heads to the lab. This is as serious as the Kendrick vs. Drake beef for waifu fans. Okabe calls a roundtable meeting to discuss their next steps and says they need to perfect the phone microwave before they name the phenomenon DeLorean mail or D-mail. Experiments show D-mail in a banana sent to the past, so Okabe and Daru shop for lab supplies and meet Moeka, who tries to communicate via text as Daru falls for her. Back at the lab, Mr. Brown is annoyed by their experiments and Suzuha denies knowing Kurisu despite glaring at her. Kurisu figures out D-mails and explains that 1 second on the microwave equals an hour of backward travel. Okabe praises the team's achievements but suggests they rest. He dreams of a black hole and hears Kurisu's voice, feeling he has become a jelly man. Later, he gets woken up by his phone and sees Moeka's messages, realizing she's at the lab door. She asks to see the IBN 5100, examines it, and asks to borrow it, but Okabe declines before Daru, Mayuri, and Kurisu arrive, discussing the emails. Moeka asks about the conversation, so Okabe reveals their secrets, naming her Moeka, lab member number 005. The phone microwave is now version 1.03 and is able to send messages to any phone, so Mayuri tests it successfully, exciting Okabe, though he remains wary of Moeka taking photos. He checks with Suzuha about Mr. Brown, knowing about what they're doing, but she says he's out right now. Later, Kurisu and Mayuri return from the store without Dr. Pepper, which shocks Okabe. Kurisu suggests vegetable juice instead before he disappointingly calls a roundtable meeting to discuss Operation Erd's second phase, changing the past. Kurisu warns of time paradoxes, but Okabe is determined, planning to win the lottery. Mayuri is disappointed with Okabe's selfish use, but Daru is pleased, thinking of buying computer parts. Kurisu finds the plan lame, annoying Okabe, so Daru explains various lottery options and Okabe chooses Lotto 6. Moeka asks to borrow the IBN 5100, but Okabe refuses and she writes the winning numbers while being watched by Mayuri and Kurisu. Okabe hesitates but sends the D-mail and suddenly experiences deja vu before finding changes in reality. Luca apologizes for buying the wrong lottery ticket numbers a week ago, and he sees a Dr. Pepper bottle, realizing the timelines changed. Okabe contacts John Titor, who is confused by the fact that Okabe still has his memories from before and believes Okabe can shift the world beyond divergence 1%, potentially preventing a dystopia, and calls him their savior. He's the chosen one. In the lab, Okabe receives a text from John Titor asking him to be the world's savior, seeing which he laughs in shock and declares he wants chaos and destruction. Daru enters the lab, so Okabe announces they will continue their phone microwave experiments despite Mr. Brown's anger. Kurisu opposes the experiments, noting she supported them earlier. When Daru asks what she's talking about, Kurisu realizes Okabe has changed the past using a D-mail and asks him why he still has his memories. Okabe explains that he can keep his memories when crossing world lines, a phenomenon he calls reading Steiner. While Luca thinks about the lottery ticket Okabe advised him to buy. Back at the lab, Okabe, Kurisu, and Daru send a D-mail to Daru, explaining their card positions to win a match against Faris, but it doesn't work, so Daru calls Mayuri, who confirms he lost. Okabe and Kurisu discuss the issue in the park, and he suggests she send the next D-mail, but she refuses, believing changing the past is unfair, before Moeka appears, asking to send a D-mail. Okabe waits outside the CRT shop where Mr. Brown scolds him and Mayuri arrives. Suzuha appears, asking about John Titor before Kurisu and Moeka, who's taking photos, arrive. In the lab, Moeka decides to tell her past self not to buy her current cell phone. Moeka sends the D-mail and Okabe's reading Steiner activates 0.523299%. Okabe realizes Moeka and a watermelon Luca brought are gone. No one remembers Moeka, so Okabe checks his tests and she replies she is busy. Later, Okabe and Kurisu discuss the D-mail's effects on the roof, and she asks about reading Steiner as he wonders if he's really the savior John Titor said he was. Luca visits the lab, asking to send a D-mail to become a girl, so Okabe agrees to help and they plan to send a message to a pager. Luca sends the D-mail and Okabe's reading Steiner activates 0.456903%, after which he finds himself standing in front of the phone microwave and wonders what changed.
Nice.
Okabe discusses D-mails with Daru at May Queen Yanyan, but Daru points out that they failed to change his luck. Faris hears them and says she's interested in sending text messages into the past. Okabe returns to the lab and sees Kurisu upset after a phone call. She denies crying but later breaks down on Mayuri's pillow, so Okabe offers to listen, then jokes about using her for grunt work. Faris decides to visit Mayuri, who shares her mixed feelings about the phone microwave and later brings lunch to the lab, where Kurisu explains that time travel hasn't succeeded with humans, only data. Okabe is shocked to find the IBN 5100 missing and suspects the last D-mail caused it, so they wonder if the butterfly effect is responsible. After contacting Luca, who confirms the IBN 5100 was once at Yanabanashi Shrine, Okabe consults Faris, who agrees to help if she can send a D-mail, but when she does, Okabe suddenly gets transported to a changed Akihabara. Okabe is shocked to find that Akihabara no longer has its familiar stores and culture, realizing the text message they sent has caused some huge changes. On August 8, 2010, Suzuha observes the crashed satellite, while Okabe and Daru learn they met Ferris through a tournament. Back at the lab, the group plans a beach trip and Okabe mistakenly assumes Luca is a boy. Suzuha invites Okabe to cycle, revealing her quest to find her father with only a pin as a clue, so he makes her lab member number 008. On August 9th, Okabe plans a party for Suzuha, but suddenly receives a disturbing message. Later, he and Mayuri remember their childhood memories and Kurisu and Luca cook for the party, which is cancelled when Suzuha doesn't arrive. Okabe sends a D-mail to prevent her from leaving and later learns she attended Daru's meeting and had fun at the party, deciding to keep looking for her father. On August 10, 2010 at 3 p.m., Okabe has Suzuha distract Mr. Brown to avoid disrupting an experiment, so she distracts him by covering his head with her shirt, but the experiment is interrupted when a screwdriver hits Mr. Brown's TV remote, turning it off. Okabe realizes the TV acts as the lifter, enabling D-mails, before Mr. Brown punches him, but he shares his discovery with the lab. Kurisu suggests sending memories back in time instead of a whole person, needing many parts for the time leap machine, so Okabe explains her idea to Mayuri, who prefers using D-mails. They meet Moeka, who leaves after learning about the hypothesis, and Suzuha, now shirtless, apologizes for her distraction. Okabe discovers Kurisu's forum posts and she denies working for CERN, revealing her strained relationship with her father. She agrees to build a machine before Mayuri arrives with cosplay items, and a threatening message scares Okabe. Rushing back to the lab, he finds it empty and accidentally walks in on the girls bathing. Daru discovers CERN's hack, terrifying Okabe, who suspects CERN sent the message. Okabe finds himself in a barren wasteland where Mayuri appears and tells him they are 70 million years in the past, destined to die. Their wills will live on. On August 13, 2010 at 2 p.m., the time leap machine is completed and Kurisu explains how it operates, needing a human subject for testing. However, Okabe decides to go public with the machine instead of experimenting, so Mayuri, Kurisu, and Daru agree with his decision. Later, at 5:41 p.m., Okabe and Kurisu shop for the lab's upcoming development conference, and Kurisu admits she's relieved they canceled the experiment. Back at the lab, she and Suzuha start arguing, so Mayuri hurriedly calms them down. After some food and games, Okabe and Mayuri talk on the roof, and Mayuri observes the lab's growing membership, asking if she still needs to be his hostage. Before Okabe can answer, Daru calls them back and they hear breaking news about bomb threats shutting down the city trains. Daru's mention of hacking CERN shocks Suzuha, who abruptly leaves before Okabe abruptly notices that an hourglass and Mayuri's pocket watch have stopped. Things are going to get real messy now, I can already tell. Suddenly, 5 armed, masked men burst in, led by Moeka Kiryu. She announces that CERN will be confiscating the time machine and arrests Okabe, Kurisu, and Daru. When Okabe inquires about Mayuri, Moeka says she's unnecessary and shoots her. She what? Shocked, Okabe holds her lifeless body, crying and desperately wondering what's happening. Moeka points a gun at Okabe's head, but Suzuha intervenes and swiftly disarms the men. She tells the lab members that the big TV, the lifter for the time leap machine, is on and creates a distraction, allowing Kurisu to start the machine. Despite Kurisu's doubts, Okabe says they have to time leap. As the process begins, Kurisu gets shot, but this is anime, so we go to a flashback where Okabe comforts Mayuri at her grandmother's grave, telling her she's his hostage. August 13, 2010, 4:56 p.m., Okabe returns to the lab, realizing the time leap worked. He cancels the development conference and starts searching for Mayuri. After checking several locations, Suzuha directs him to Mayuri and he finds her looking at the sky and takes her to a train station. They are almost caught by a man with a gun but escape, only for Mayuri to be fatally hit by a car. Determined to save her, Okabe initiates another time leap. August 13, 2010, 4:17 p.m., Okabe convinces Kurisu and Daru to leave the lab and finds Mayuri. They head to the subway, dodging some suspicious men, but as they're waiting for the train, Mayuri is accidentally pushed onto the tracks by Nai, who wanted to surprise her. I mean, the universe is making a statement here, but Okabe, in shock, vows to save her, and time leaps again. And so, the mess keeps getting crazier. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more mind-bending adventures with the Future Gadget Laboratory, and I'll see you all next time.